Hello, hello. This is Nicole Harlot. Welcome to this episode of Speaking of the Village. I'm joined here with my co-host Dawn Thompson and Theresa Moutafis, who is a registered dietitian and lactation consultant. And I'm excited about this episode today because we're talking about nutrition and nourishment, but specifically for breastfeeding and lactating mothers. And as a current lactating mother, I'm excited to dive into this. So, Teresa, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of got to this point, your own journey, all the fun things, and then we'll get started.
Sure, yeah. So thank you for having me today. I started out working in the WIC program, which is Women, Infants, and Children in the U.S. A nutrition program. And I just fell in love with all things this era of life. It is just a beautiful time, and once I had my own kids, it really solidified that. I didn't get much of this education in graduate school or my internship. I maybe got like a couple of days, especially about breastfeeding. So I never would have dreamed that would have been my career, but I am so happy it has been. So I've been, doing all kinds of things since then, since I left the WIC program, doing a lot of telehealth, telelactation, telenutrition, and things like that.
Very cool. So let's just get right into it. What foods should moms avoid while pregnant or while breastfeeding? I think that's oh, what can I do? What can I do? So let's just jump right into it.
I love it. Yeah, it's because you hear so many things out there, right? You hear just, you shouldn't eat this and you should never eat this, and if you eat this, your baby's going to be gassy or whatever. So when we're talking about foods to avoid for pregnancy, it's going to be the boring stuff. It's going to be the high mercury fish, unpasteurized anything. We want everything to be pasteurized. Um, and oh my goodness, I'm pausing. One second.
Fine.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Holy moly.
Don't listen. It happens to us all the time. ADHD
Oh my
brain.
god, it just flew out of my brain.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Do you want me to restart from my sentence or from just in the middle or just restart the sentence?
Yeah, restart.
Restart. Okay. All right. So I'm really glad you asked that. There's a lot of things you hear online about what to avoid, what you shouldn't eat because of this, that, or the other reason. When you're pregnant, really simple things to avoid. It's going to be alcohol, the high mercury fish, anything unpasteurized. You want to make sure anything, deli meats and things like that, are heated till steaming hot. And it's really all about good food safety practices, right? Herbs. So if you're doing herbal tea or herbal supplements, you want to talk to your doctor about those because some are not safe for pregnancy. Then once you've had baby, you actually don't need to avoid a whole heck of a lot, which is really amazing. You can eat essentially whatever you want. We do want to eat the rainbow. We want to nourish ourselves because it's about us too, right? But you still want to stay away from high mercury fish, but that's across the board. I told my dad to lay off some of the albacore tuna he was eating, for example. It is still a neurotoxin, so we do want to keep that low regardless of our stage of life. And then, despite all the things you hear about, well, don't eat spicy foods, don't eat gassy foods, this, that, or the other, unless you notice your baby having significant issues and you can directly correlate that back to what you ate, you know, there is no blanket thing you need to avoid in that case. I always think about, my oldest, there was one time I ate, for some reason, a ton of like broccoli or Swiss chard that I never would have thought, but I think I ate enough of it where her belly was like, oh, I've never seen this before. And she got a little gassy. It didn't harm her. It was just like, oh, she's little puffier and crankier than usual. And that was about it. I didn't avoid those foods afterward. I just knew, okay, new things. Sometimes weird stuff can crop up.
Yeah.
What are I mean, we had the Eric from Mama Meals on, and he was talking about how important nutrition is after you've had a baby for
Yes.
postpartum recovery, for breastfeeding, all those
Hmm.
things. And I feel like that's a lost art because, generations ago, everybody knew. Like you eat stews, you eat, things that warm the body and things of that nature. Like, what are some things that are critically important to be eating though? Like, that make a big difference in how you're doing, both you and babe.
Absolutely. So it is a lost art. We have all these cultures that really like protect the postpartum mom in her space, allowing her to recover and rebuild and feed the baby. And we don't see that anymore. It's just like go off and do your thing, right? And so that's I think where we get a lot of these myths and things, but nutrition is important. Are you going to have whatever a perfect diet means after delivery? No. You may need to be gluten free because you have celiac. You may be on some sort of autoimmune protocol. You may be on a special diet for a special reason. You may be a cultural diet, and or just a cultural food pattern. So there is no perfect diet, but the key components are you want to make sure you're getting in your your variety, you are nourishing yourself. Fiber is a big thing. Fiber is huge. That first bowel movement after you give birth is no joke, so you want to start kind of making it a little easier on yourself, and you're going to do that through fiber and water. And what's fiber found in? Well, fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds, all of the beans, all of those lovely, lovely things that are also nourishing and nutrient packed. In addition, the veggies and fruits also have water in them, so you kind of get like double the fun there. And then making sure you're staying hydrated. I'm the worst at staying hydrated. I guarantee you my life would be easier if I was hydrated. So drinking your water, always having water near you, or having someone bring you water when you sit down without having to ask for it, those are going to make things much easier. You still have some nutrients that you want to pay attention to, like you do when you're pregnant. I'm a big choline nerd. Choline is huge for a baby's neurodevelopment. We need it both during pregnancy and postpartum. You're going to find that in some animal products. You're going to find that in eggs, and meats and things like that. And then your supplement should also have some choline in it as well. But we never want to rely on supplements, our multivitamins. Those are like the insurance policy. We want to get it through whole foods. If you're vegetarian or vegan, vitamin B12 is crucial when you are breastfeeding and also for your own health. You have to make sure you're going to be able to get that from fortified foods, because it's mostly found in animal foods, or by taking a high quality supplement or a fortified nutritional yeast or something like that. Those are my top ones, but it's really about getting in that variety, making sure you're pairing protein with your meals so you're not having these blood sugar dips and you're hangry and miserable and feel like you can't do anything. Making sure that your meals and snacks are balanced as you can. And that could simply mean grabbing a few crackers out of the box and grabbing a cheese stick. It doesn't have to be fancy,
Right.
but you are going to feel better.
I often say to people postpartum, think charcuterie board.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Charcuterie board, dried fruits,
Yes.
nuts, meats, cheeses. Like it's so or they call it the single girl diet or something.
Yeah,
Single
right.
girl
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
it's something that if you're standing there, and you will if you're new and you're just now starting breastfeeding, pretty soon you'll be able to be breastfeeding, walking around the house and one armed and have one arm free. And I always say like you need to be able to open the refrigerator and grab a couple things out and stick it in your mouth. Like
Exactly.
that's it.
No, it's so true. Like
Nothing hard.
it's a convenience doesn't have to be a dirty word.
Right.
We think everything has to be this like beautiful preparation. Who has time for that?
Not a
Especially
breastfeeding mama, I'll tell you that.
no, absolutely not. Like you want to open, even if it means like, okay, you're opening the container of hummus and like one-handed, like eating those carrots and hummus or crackers and hummus or whatever, but it can be convenient, but also nourishing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I'll just share this. This is kind of an off the cuff thing, but we just moved into a new house and it has a guava tree, and the guava is abundant. I mean, thousands of
Oh
them. I
my
can't even
gosh.
keep up. They're ripening faster than I can pull them off the tree, and I've got, guava rolling down the hill every day. But the interesting thing is I started making stuff with it. So I started making a juice um, that and because I started reading up on it because I really didn't know much. But did you guys know it's actually a superfruit? It has tremendous amounts of
Oh
vitamin
yeah.
C and like all this stuff. But what's great, it's also high in fiber and
Yes.
really helps with the gut. It helps kill bacteria, negative bacteria in the gut and all that stuff. Well, I've been drinking it regularly now for about 4 weeks, and I'm blown away at the difference in my digestive system. And I literally just drink like 4 ounces. It's not a lot because obviously there's sugar content too, so I don't want a ton of it, but it doesn't take much. And I think that that's the thing that people can understand. Obviously, I don't need you to go out and go buy guava and start making juice,
No, no, no.
but it is an interesting thing when you start thinking about what are the things that you can eat like that. Look at the things that are super fruit, super high impact for a very small amount of something,
And
and then
also,
a bunch of empty calories just is not helpful in any way when you're breastfeeding. And I mean, do you know what the average protein intake should be for a woman who's breastfeeding?
So the excuse me. So I know for pregnancy it is 71 grams per day. Protein, here's the thing, protein really needs is individual, right? It's individual based on your current diet, how much you are breastfeeding, um, all of those things. At a minimum, we want, you'd have to do the math, but around 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So you would just need to convert your weight
I was gonna
to
say, damn metric system.
I
I
know,
couldn't.
right? Like there is a number for pounds, but I've always, because
Right.
one is so easy, right? And maybe even a little bit more. Here's the thing, you don't need excessive amounts of protein because your body can only use so much. So it's going to just kind of store the rest of it or whatever. So you you want that 1 gram per kilogram generally. Some people need a little more, which is fine. But just pairing it with your meals and snacks is an easy way to get to that number. You don't need excessive amounts. I don't want you going and counting grams of anything, right? Unless you're super deficient or there's a very specific need, you don't need to be counting anything.
Mm, mm.
So, how can dietitians support the needs of specifically breastfeeding moms more so than just a regular like pediatrician or OB? Like, why is it important for lactating or even pregnant, but specifically lactating moms to reach out for support specifically for their nutrition?
So because it can be hard to meet your needs. It can be hard when you're exhausted to like to fathom a healthy balance of everything, right? What we like to do as dietitians is to help you build something that works for you. Because sure, I could just send you out and like, here's a meal plan, go ahead. But if it's not realistic for you, it's not foods that are palatable, it's not feasible budget wise. So we kind of have the expertise to help you put all that together. In addition, it kind of moves into the body image concerns too. And understanding, okay, your body has changed. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can we help you navigate that? How can we help you nourish yourself? If you're bound and determined to lose weight, what does that look like in a healthy way without negatively impacting you, your energy, your milk supply, your body image, and all of that? So we're able to be that extra person to help you balance and help empower you to be able to eat in a way that feels authentic to you, but also helps you meet goals of more energy and feeling better overall. And
Well,
again, recovering.
and I think the other thing that what we probably should mention is that most pediatricians and obstetricians have very little training in nutrition. I think
Very
I
little.
have an obstetrician friend that said it was like 2 pages of
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
course. of their medical education. It is not a thing
Yep.
that they're learning. And so when you're turning to these people, and it's the same thing with breastfeeding, right? They
Right, I
have
was just gonna
little to
say it's with a
no,
lot of things.
yeah, they have little to no training in breastfeeding, if at all. At some, now I want to give credit where credit is due. Some do go and seek additional education so that they can support their clients better. But unfortunately, when you ask the question of these providers, they don't always say, "Oh, I don't actually know that," and you
No.
should hire somebody who does. I can only imagine why that might be happening instead of them saying like, "Yeah, you know what? I don't feel solid in that." But instead, they sometimes give horrific advice.
Oh, I've worked on the other end of that advice. And again, this isn't disparaging anyone. It is just kind of fact of the matter. Just like, if someone came to me for renal nutrition, for kidney nutrition, I wouldn't pretend to know that. Maybe I could give them some basics, but I would be like, no, you need to see a renal dietitian. It's about, we can't specialize. Your doctor can't specialize in everything. I can't specialize in everything as a dietitian. There are going to be specialties, and dietitians, lactation consultants, pelvic floor physical therapists, whatever, they are specialists in that field. And I know it seems overwhelming, like, oh, I have to go see all these people. You can see a dietitian for a couple of visits and have something to work off of. It doesn't, unless you want it to be, it doesn't have to be weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and months.
Right.
It can be what you need it to be.
Well, I just want to point out some of the really good takeaways that I've gotten from this conversation so far. Is one is hydration is super important, and Dawn, you kind of alluded to that with the guava juice, right? Like
Yeah.
extra hydration that even
Hmm.
if that was the minimum that you were getting was extra, ounces during the day, I'm sure you're feeling those benefits. And I know a lot of us struggle with actual like hydration. So,
Yep.
um, yes,
Right.
I know. I don't have mine. My fault. I ran into this room and locked the door behind me so the kids wouldn't come in. I forgot my water,
Ooh.
um, but in the show notes, I'm sure there's some great hydration recommendations. I know I used one through my pregnancy and postpartum, which was homemade. It wasn't any of these like sugary things. It was just all about electrolytes and hydration because sometimes water's hard to stomach and like get down. So there's
Oh.
definitely other options down there that are healthy. Um, I'll let Teresa also, give me some, but I have one that I definitely want to share. Additionally, I think you really hit the head on like or the nail on the head with like individualized, right? So many of these episodes that we talk to experts in, it's a recurring theme. Like everyone is individual.
Hmm.
And as a society, I think we try to fit into these boxes of, well, if I'm breastfeeding, I'm going to lose weight. Well, that's not the case. And then people, their expectations are wrong. And some people may absolutely lose weight and be ravenous and like, but it depends on every single person. And I think that goes again, like through pregnancy, nutrition, through postpartum, through lactation, like it's all going to be individualized, and that's why the specialist and the support are so important because you can go on Google and read about everyone else, but that's not you. So these support professionals can actually see what you are doing, see what you need in your body, in your lifestyle, and support you in that way. So I just want to drive that home a little bit.
Yeah. I think the next thing that you said was fiber. I think that like especially those first few days after you've just
Yes.
had a baby, and you want everything to be moving smoothly,
Oh,
and
yes.
so fiber focus is a big fiber focus. That could be a good
No, I like that. I'm
name.
sure there's been some sort of newsletter. My favorite nutrition newsletter, they stopped publishing it. It used to be called Dry Bean Quarterly from like the Bean Association. I was like, this is like the best newsletter I've ever gotten. Like, you would be surprised at the amount of like trade associations that have names like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean fiber and you know enough good greens,
Yeah.
vegetables, fruits. Those are all ways that are going to help everything be moving smoothly and help with increasing your breast milk and all of those things. Like there's all kinds of things about how to increase your breast milk. So if somebody's listening right now and they're struggling with you know, um, enough milk? What what are some of the things?
So, it's actually not about food. Now, with the caveat, with the asterisk that it you have to eat enough.
Right.
You have to eat enough. If you're not eating enough and you are just completely wiped and malnourished, then it's very possible your milk supply will suffer along with that. Outside of that, there is no magic food, there is no magic diet that is going to increase milk supply. It's about mechanics and investigation. Sometimes when people think their milk supply is low, it's actually just how baby is latching and how baby is feeding. The milk supply, the milk's there, baby's just, or the pump are having trouble getting it out. Okay, so we need to optimize that. And beyond that, we need to investigate. Usually it's a medical concern, or it could, now nutritionally, yeah, could it be something like anemia or low B12? Yes, it could be. You're iron deficient, you boost up your iron, boom, you're all right. But there can be other issues behind it too. But there isn't a magic diet. There is some evidence that soluble fiber, like the stuff that makes things kind of gelatinous, like oatmeal or something, could potentially help with milk supply. But we need to, I mean, that's not, I would want a mom to be eating that anyway. But there's nothing magic, unfortunately. If now, what one of my coworkers likes to point out, and I love this point, if you say you drank this thing or ate this thing and all of a sudden your milk supply got better, well, maybe it's not the thing. Maybe it's what the thing gave you. Did you just need to be more hydrated? Did you just need some more fiber in your diet? So it's not that you ate this magical bar, it's that you just needed that many more calories.
Right.
Oh, God, I love that. I asked the question on purpose because I knew,
Yeah.
right, that most people are like, okay, what can I do? Because
Always.
obviously,
Trust
Never
me,
fails.
I was told tahini, like sesame seeds, were galactagogue, and when I tell you spooned
Oh gosh.
tahini and honey, because I was told to mix it with honey, and it was actually delicious, by the way.
Oh, I'm
I called
sure.
it to honey. I was spooning it. And the problem was my son had like four severe oral ties and
Oh.
wasn't removing enough milk, and it had nothing to do with how much tahini I was spooning a day. And now I like stay away from it because when you have something so much that you're like, I just don't want that ever again.
Yes.
That's that.
Mhm.
But I do want to circle back because you skimmed over something very briefly about body image. And I just want to point out to our listeners that we're talking about nutrition and nourishment and feeling good and energy and all of the things. And we are not saying that you need to bounce back
No.
to your postpartum or
No.
to your pre-baby body, right? We want to make sure that we're not feeling pressure to those moms that feel like they need to bounce back. Of course, we all want to look like we did when we were 20 or however, but realistically, there's so many more things and more priorities that need to be of concern before that is even a thought, especially if you're breastfeeding. And I'm just curious, like, what do you say to moms that come to you and say, okay, cool, I want to bounce back after pregnancy? Like, that's my goal. And they're still breastfeeding and they're still newly postpartum and all of the things?
Yeah, I typically I explain that to them that that it has to be a balance. We can't safely do that. I hate the term bounce back. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. Like I find it to be a disgusting term. Like our bodies have changed. We need to support the fact that our bodies have changed. And what I usually end up diving into is that those issues or those concerns didn't come out of nowhere. People have had concerns with their body image and with eating and things like that throughout their lives. This didn't just all of a sudden pop up after pregnancy, right? And this is where nutrition can often toe the line with mental health, and kind of balancing that. And I have had people work with therapists too. What I usually do is if there's enough concerns there and someone wants to work with me long term, I usually move into like an intuitive eating framework. And I'm not a purist with intuitive eating. I'm not someone who, just as a background, intuitive eating is essentially learning to listen to your body's signals. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's just recognizing that I feel better when I do this, or I'm feeding myself from an internal perspective versus an external, you have to do this perspective. That's how I usually describe it. I'm not a purist. You will find people who are purists, maybe even the creators, where no, you can't lose weight and do intuitive eating. But I think intuitive eating is a great baseline for whatever anyone wants to do. It's understanding that it doesn't have to be an external focus. It's like I feel weird right now. I don't feel like myself. Maybe just nourishment is the key. Maybe you just need to be nourished, but maybe weight loss is appropriate for some. But establishing that foundation of intuitive eating, I usually work through the intuitive eating workbook with people, which can be used on its own if you wanted to check it out, but I definitely recommend working with someone too. And we just work through all these concepts like ditching the diet police and understanding satisfaction, understanding hunger, and all of this. And we work through it so someone can have like this baseline where they're able to actually tell themselves what they need versus having this person say you should do this diet, this person say you should take this person saying you should exercise 1 million hours a day and whatnot.
So I need to just say something about that because as someone who struggles and who has struggled with obesity and food addiction, intuitive eating is not. It's not a thing. Sorry, it's not. I because if I'm intuitively eating as someone who has food addiction, I'm choosing a piece of cake.
Right. So
right? Like,
there
that's
are
like a whole.
yeah, no, that there are appropriate uses. So that is why I said I use it when it is appropriate.
Okay. Because I think that's important to understand is that there's a lot of people who suffer out there, and I would love to say it's an interesting subject because I've been on the medications that everyone is raving about right now, the semaglutides and all of that, and it has been unreal what has happened to the way I think about food.
Yeah.
And it's unreal. I'm blown away by it. It confused me because I've been on every diet in the frickin' planet probably. And I've been blown away at the fact that I thought, oh, this is why skinny people are skinny, because they can go to the refrigerator and think, what can I eat that's in here? Where someone with obesity is saying, what do I feel like eating? And when you are driven by the what you feel like eating, you're almost always going to make the wrong choice.
Well, so I will push back a little bit. I've worked with people with many different arenas. I have worked with someone on a semaglutide and intuitive eating, and it's not just about, oh, what do I feel like? When I'm talking internal cues, it's relearning those, and yes, it's going to take psychological help and maybe even medication, right, to understand. But it is what we're doing is we are pushing back against the external, because a lot of my patients I have worked with, they have come into it and are struggling with obesity or whatever because of the constant pressure to diet when they were younger. And it wasn't like, oh, they were overweight as a kid and their parents helped them realize the world of nutrition. No, it was often like, you need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. I've had people have their parents send them to fat camps. It's always comes down to this kind of lifelong pressure. And so those cues are lost. And if a semaglutide helps you come back to that, great. But the goal is to get back to that. So it's not a feel like, it's like, what is it telling you? So there are a lot of nuances, and it should not just be taken flippantly. It has to be right for someone. Have there been patients that it wasn't right for? 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. But I have found it to be an effective tool for the appropriate people in the postpartum setting.
Yeah.
When they're dealing with this stupid bounce back.
Yeah.
I just want to add here, since we are talking to pregnant, postpartum, nursing potential moms, I'm pretty certain, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those medications are not safe for any of those. So just
No.
wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Yes, they are
Just
not.
yeah,
They are
not
absolutely
safe for any of the pregnant, postpartum, or
Yeah.
nursing. So
nope.
Thank you
Nope.
for saying
That is way after
That's a
your
big
journey.
no. Yeah, big no. I just was saying about how, just like in my in my own experience is of processing this idea of eating appropriately or eating the right things, that if you also suffer from any sort of obesity or food addiction issues, it can be really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really hard. And I just wonder, do you by any chance, or does it exist to have like, because I'm a checklist girl. I love checklists,
Yeah, me
checklists,
too.
right? And I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, is there, and I get that everybody's needs are different and all of that stuff, but is there some sort of like postpartum meal checklist for breastfeeding moms? Because I imagine that like it would be super helpful if I had a piece of paper and it said, if you can get something in this group of food, this group of things in each meal a day or whatever, a snack, just like a recommended
Yes.
menu.
I love that. I want to say I need to double check that this still exists. But for years, a lot of us were using materials from California's Sweet Success, but then it got changed. It was meant to help with gestational diabetes, but that's exactly the type of thing they had. And I loved it because it was like, get these fruits in, get these veggies in, which I love too, because sometimes my thing is it's like, okay, I'm not eating enough fruit. Well, what does that mean? So when I tell myself, Teresa, you are going to eat two fruits today, guess what I do? Even if I reach for something else, I'm still making sure I get those two fruits. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a helpful strategy for people. I'm
Mm.
going to double check and then I'll email you guys. Maybe you can put it in the show notes
For
if
sure.
that still exists. Because
I might,
yeah,
because if it doesn't, I should make it. Because I'm just thinking, we just put together for Birthify, we just put together a whole like list of checklists like that people can. We have a couple that are free downloads, and then we have a couple that are seven right now that are for a low price. And I'm just thinking, God, this would be an amazing addition to
yes,
like
I
postpartum
kind
meal
of
planning, because I know for me, again, with somebody who struggles and isn't very great, not everybody's great at meal planning, right? And now
no,
you've got a
no,
newborn and
no.
you're trying to figure all that out, and breastfeeding, like just the process of breastfeeding. But oh yeah, by the way, we want you to think about your nutrition too, right?
Yeah,
While you're
Right.
dealing with that.
no,
And
that's
I just think for a lot of women, it could be really helpful to just be like, look, here's a suggested menu for the week
yeah.
when you're a breastfeeding mom, or just a new postpartum mom. You don't even have to be breastfeeding, right? All these things are good for recovery. But if I just had something that I could look at and go, okay, what didn't I eat yet today? When your brain isn't working and you're exhausted,
Oh, 100%,
yeah, I
100%.
think if you don't find it, I think I'm gonna make one. So
All right, I can always make one too. I probably would want to put it in one of our classes
yeah.
at Aeroflow too.
And if you are listening to this, because of course it's not going to actually broadcast for at least a few weeks, so hopefully by then I'll already have it, and you can come to Birthify and download it.
Love
That's
it,
my intention today. We're walking out of here with a checklist
love
for
it.
postpartum meal.
I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, there's got to be something. I'm sure there's something out there.
There's got to be now. Whether I like it or not is a different.
True. Maybe Teresa, maybe this is something we can collaborate on and
I think
together,
that would
and
be fabulous. I think that
yeah,
would be great.
I can make
And
all the
I'm just
details.
here observing the magic happen. This is why the PRC exists and the Perinatal Resource Club exists, because we bring people together and we create resources for the moms to digest easily
That's
and
right.
Yes, I love
effectively.
it.
So I'm just here like, woo! My whole life's mission is happening before my eyes.
Oh my God.
Um, well, we are getting close to time, but I just wanted to ask one last question. Um, we talked about, foods to avoid, what foods to have. Is there a specific like eating pattern? I don't want to say the D word, but like an eating pattern that you should follow while breastfeeding. And I know it's individualized, but if there's like one thing that a mom listening can take away from this episode of like what they should be doing, what would it be?
You want to make sure you are keeping yourself steady throughout the day. So, what I would hate to see, and it's going to happen some days, quite frankly, it's going to happen. I would hate to see you just wake up, nurse baby, do things, and then all of a sudden it's noon and you haven't eaten. Right? Because you are going to feel it. We've all been hangry. That's a product of that blood sugar bottoming out. So if you take away anything, Please eat consistently throughout the day. Have snacks. You need a lot of extra if you're exclusively providing breast milk. Maybe snack when your baby's eating. But make sure you're eating consistently. Pair that protein in with it so again you're maintaining those blood sugar levels. That's probably the biggest thing because again we have all been there and it is the worst. I'm quite frankly hungry right now, so I will be eating something after, and you're going to be hangry as a parent. But one of the best things I did, and this is speaking a little bit to old parents of older kids, I was buying my kids all these snacks and we'd go to the Y and I'd have their snacks for after the Y. Was I packing anything for myself? No. What I started doing, I was like, you know what? Okay, it's $10 extra to buy a box of pre-mixed trail mix. I'm going to do that. Like it's $15 extra for this. I hate spending money. I'm super frugal. So I'm like, oh, spending money on myself. Like what? But it made just the most difference anything could ever make was to actually feed myself after like working out. Like concept. What a crazy concept.
I also, again, something I encourage postpartum moms is to have a jar of trail mix next to them.
Yes. Oh, I'm a huge, the trail mix thing. You got it all there. You got your fiber, you got your healthy fat, you got your protein. Like you can't get better than trail mix as long as you're not allergic to nuts.
Right.
Then that probably would not be a choice.
But yeah, just having a jar next to the bed or a bowl of it so that when you're in the nursery where you're nursing the baby, whatever that is, looks like for you, but that it's just nearby and at that 2 a.m. feed, you're just grabbing a handful and popping in your mouth and you're good. Like that's it.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say one of the best things I found or discovered this postpartum was like yogurt bark. Like, so I'd make yogurt bark in the freezer and I would put like strawberries or bananas or like, you can get real creative with it. And I'm not a yogurt fan, but especially like the Greek yogurts that have the good proteins in them and stuff. I don't like them by themselves, but if you freeze it with some strawberries, some dark chocolate, I would put chia seeds or like nuts or almond slices, whatever. You can get real creative and freeze it because I wanted like ice cream or like that cold sweet. And that was like key. And you could make them either like in dollops, so it was easy to pop, or like full bark and then just break off a big chunk of it. But I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'm gonna take that one, Nicole. That is
Obviously you need a freezer, but like again, it's also that like subconscious. I'm going to the fridge and like opening it. Oh, there's something I know that's good in there, right?
Yeah.
So last but not least, Theresa, we asked this of all of our guests. So speaking of the village, besides a dietitian, who would you say is the most crucial or valuable professional in a woman's village that you would recommend?
So obviously I'll say a lactation consultant for a breastfeeding mom. Honestly, because I know some hospitals, some health plans, and definitely in other countries just provide this automatically, but a freaking pelvic floor physical therapist, like, oh my gosh, like we just are like, go, knee surgeries get a year-long recovery plan. Like do this and do this and do this. And then it's like, oh, you just birthed a baby and were pregnant, maybe had it out surgically. Just go and do your thing. No, we want to rehabilitate so you can feel good because this is the beginning of having that unbalanced caretaker hold, like hunching and all those things, and having a pelvic floor physical therapist will help everything just kind of get back into alignment. Like mine has helped me with so many things. In addition, I also do another like workout program does pelvic floor physical therapy, and it's like changed everything for me. Because it's you just don't realize how off your pelvic floor is. I thought I had the diastasis recti. It turns out I didn't even have that. My pelvic floor was just that out of whack.
Wow.
And so it is like a game changer, and I wish we just all had that access to it.
I agree.
To the future. We will.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh, that would be a dream. And I'm not even a pelvic floor PT, but I'm like, if we could just all have access to that, we'd all be great. We'd all be great.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank you.
you. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Well,
No, I
thank
was
you
gonna
so
say
much.
thank you. This is a great conversation. I think a lot of good nuggets that our listeners can take away and hopefully implement. They're easy, not like you said, nothing fancy, nothing too overly complicated, and we just really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun, guys. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good